Hey, Facebook peeps, how are you? Let's get the Instagram peeps up here. I am the wrong way. Whoops. And let's get everybody up here. Make sure everybody can see. Hey, Instagram people, how is everybody? I'm trying my iPad today because I don't like the way the phone looks. Anyway, your number 2 question I am answering today, and that has to do with, are hormones useful and safe? And this is a great question. So let's get into it. If you saw my email earlier today, then you got part of the answer. But I think it's a really important question to answer. Are hormones safe and useful? So this idea that hormones are not safe came about around 2002 when the Women's Health Initiative study came out. It was a huge study with thousands of women where they actually stopped the study early. They were looking at it to see if the hormones that women commonly took, which happened to be horse estrogen and a synthetic progestin. Okay, so what I want you to know is that when you're talking about hormones, this idea that all hormones are not safe is confusing because we're comparing apples and oranges. And although apples and oranges are both fruit, right? They're very different, right? One's a citrus fruit. It's orange. It has way more sugar. The other apples grow in a different climate. They're completely different. I think you'll agree. So although the hormones are all in a family, that means that they are essentially wireless communicators. They're chemicals that are controlled by the brain and they are secreted by endocrine organs. They go to other organs in your body to send signals. So they're communicators. Although all of these communicators are in the same family, just like apples and oranges are fruit, you can't say that insulin is the same as thyroid hormone. I think you would agree with me, right? They come from 2 different organs, just like apples and oranges come from 2 different plants, 2 different climates. And thyroid and insulin come from 2 different parts of the body, and they have completely different functions, just like apples and oranges do. So the problem with where this idea that hormones are not safe comes from the fact that a lot of us doctors, and I used to be guilty of this when I practiced regular medicine, we lump all these hormones, sex hormones, in the same category. So this Women's Health Initiative study looked at the main hormone replacement therapy that women were on in menopause, which was equilin, which is horse estrogen, and medroxyprogesterone acetate, long fancy word, you can call it MPA for short, for a synthetic progestin. So bottom line, what does this mean without all the fancy medicalese? It means that these are not hormones that are naturally occurring in a woman's body. And that's what most women were on. And so they wanted to look at, were these hormones helping women with the top causes of death, which are cardiovascular disease, breast cancer, colon cancer. And they stopped this study early in 2002, saying that, I want to get the comments up here, that, hey, Tammy, that there was actually increased risk of breast cancer being shown. And I think they stopped it at just shy of 5 years. Increased risk of breast cancer, increased risk of heart disease, strokes, blood clots, and they stopped it. And I remember that day. I remember that day like it was yesterday. Why do I remember it? Because every patient I had on hormone therapy was calling the office. Oh my gosh, what should I do? Did you see the news? I mean, it was plastered all over the news. And so all these women came off their hormones and they were miserable. And so this is where this idea that hormones aren't safe comes from, okay? But what I want you to remember is you're talking about apples right there. This study was looking at apple hormones, one kind of hormones that are foreign to the human body. That's what they were looking at. Now, when most doctors talk about hormone therapy, they're lumping that type of synthetic hormone therapy in the same category with natural or so-called biologically identical hormone therapy. So what's the difference? Natural hormones are what your body naturally has. So you have natural sex hormones. All women have estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, right? Natural means the same as what your body naturally has. So when we talk in functional medicine about hormone replacement therapy, we're talking about natural or biologically or bioidentical hormone therapy, which is oranges. We are not talking about apples. Apples are different from oranges. So you cannot lump all of them into the same category. And when you replace a woman's naturally occurring hormones, actually, she has reduced risk of chronic diseases, including Alzheimer's disease and many others, heart disease, breast cancer, all kinds of things. But the issue is that these hormones have been used for over 50 to 70 years worldwide. There are thousands of small-scale studies that have been done to prove their safety and efficacy. But mainstream medicine doesn't accept it for various reasons, which are very political, which we can get into another time. But this idea that hormone therapy replacement therapy is not safe is talking about apples. And I agree. Women should generally not have horse estrogen, equilin, which was the estrogen they looked at in those studies. And they generally should not have progestins, which are chemically altered progesterone. So they took your body's naturally occurring progesterone, chemically altered it, and made another substance, MPA. And so they put those together and in Prempro or Premphase, and that's what they were looking at in the Women's Health Initiative study. So those are generally considered not as safe. However, they are better than nothing. So if you have access to only the synthetics, it's better than nothing. And it's interesting because actually one of the authors of that original study has now come out and said that it was really a media hoopla where they came out and made this big deal about it's increasing breast cancer. And so all these women came off their hormones, and that the increased, when women came off their hormones, the mortality rate is thought to have increased so much from 2002 to 2012 because of the increased risk of osteoporosis and hip fractures and the increased risk of colon cancers that weren't prevented, that it may have caused up to 100,000 women to prematurely die. Okay, so do you hear what I'm saying? So it was like a media frenzy, and it may have been premature for them to stop this study, and the findings are not entirely valid. And it may have caused up to 100,000 women to have premature deaths because of it. So even the apple synthetic hormones do have benefit in preventing colon cancer, heart disease, right? So these are some of the top causes of death in women. But better yet is to use the naturally occurring or so-called biologic hormones. Those are the orange type hormones, which is what we use in functional medicine. And, you know, I'm the kind of doctor doctor means teacher. So I like to educate people about their bodies, help them understand how their bodies work. And hey, Lisa, hey, Tammy. Oh, and the place, I'll answer that in just a second. So that's a great question. So I like to educate you about your body so that you can make informed choices about your health. I'm not the kind of doctor who says, you need to do this because I said so. It's just not how I am. I educate you. You're intelligent. You can make your own choice. And so I want to educate you, but I want to ask you a question, right? Because we all have a truth meter that you might have heard me talk about. We know the truth when we hear it. So if it was a woman's naturally occurring sex hormones, estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, but let's take estrogen because that's the one usually people point the finger at. If estrogen caused breast cancer, wouldn't it make sense that the women or the people who have the more estrogen than anyone else would have the highest rate of breast cancer? That would make sense, right? Well, who has the highest rate of breast cancer, highest rate of estrogen or highest level of estrogen? Women generally in their 20s have the highest estrogen of anyone else. So do they have high risk of breast cancer? No, because it's not estrogen, naturally occurring, God-given estrogen that causes breast cancer. And so when you realize that, you're like, yeah, that doesn't make sense. When do women get breast cancer? When their progesterone, the hormone that balances their estrogen, starts going down in their 40s, in the perimenopause, and in the 50s. So it's not estrogen that causes breast cancer. It's estrogen that's unopposed and balanced by progesterone. So, when most women hear that, they're like, yeah, that kind of makes sense. Not to mention that cancer is really an inflammatory condition and it's an immune system failure, which is a whole other topic. So, you really got to look at the whole picture. So I love this question. Are hormones useful and safe? So many of you asked it on my one question survey about the one hormone thing, the one thing that you need to know about, that you would want a program about hormones to cover and help you with. Because I was really thinking about running the Hormone Balance Mastermind again in March. And I was like, well, if I'm going to do it, I want to make sure that I'm hitting all the questions that people have. If you didn't get a chance to give me your one hormone question, your one hormone thing, your one hormone issue, you can still go and put your information on there. It'll take you less than 2 minutes. And it's at, oh my gosh, where is it? It's at midlifemetabolisminstitute.com. One thing, ONETHING. So you can go there and you can tell me your one thing. And I want to know, what is it people need help with about hormones? Because I might think it's one thing and you might be thinking, Dr. Karen, it's another. You guys had, we're like at 115, 120 responses now. Thank you all so much for answering that. Because really, Lisa said, my mom took Prempro and developed uterine cancer and died. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to hear that. And yes, so Prempro is horse estrogen and synthetic progestin, MPA. And this is what they were looking at in the Women's Health Initiative study. I never think it's a good idea to chemically alter something that's naturally occurring in us that keeps us healthy, to chemically alter it so you can get a patent on it, which is what happened with that medication. Because that's just going to cause a problem, because then it sits on the hormone receptor, but it sits on it cattywampus. So it does some things you want it to do, and it does some things you don't want it to do. It's like, have you ever had any of that ready to assemble furniture from IKEA? You know what I'm talking about? I love IKEA. Do you love IKEA? Because the stuff's so inexpensive. You can, just have a new piece of furniture really quickly, but then you get it home and you have to put it together. And do you ever not have the right little screws and dowels to put the thing together? So then you go in your toolbox where you have all the old screws from all the old projects and stuff you used to put together. You know what I'm talking about. So you pull some out there and you try to stick it in. So it might fit in the hole and it kind of sits there and holds the things together, but you put that shelf together and it's never quite right. You know what I'm talking about? It leans just a little bit, and when you put something on it, it wobbles. Well, that's the same thing as taking a woman's naturally occurring progesterone, right? Which is like the right screw in the IKEA kit for the shelf, and altering her hormone, like they took progesterone, they chemically altered it, and then they made MPA, and then they gave it to women. So it's like taking the wrong screw to put your IKEA shelf together. Do you hear what I'm saying? So it makes your shelf wonky, it makes your health wonky. both the same thing. And I think it's kind of insane of us and arrogant of us to think that we can play with our biology that way. Our biology will have a problem if we try to put the wrong screws in. And this Women's Health Initiative study really brought that out. Lisa said after menopause, she told us she had her period again, not good. She had a big sign and ignored it. My poor mommy. Yeah, actually, when you start any kind of hormones, you can start bleeding. It's not a period, and that doesn't necessarily is not a problem. And I'm sorry about your mom. So, and Tammy says, thanks for the in-depth explanation. I knew all this, but not so in-depth. And where's the place to put identical hormone therapy? So Sandra asked that. So it depends what type you're on, Sandra. If you're on, it comes in many different forms. If it's a cream, which a lot of women are on, you can put it on your inner wrist, on the thin skin on your inner wrist. You can put it on your inner thighs. It's more readily absorbed on thinner skin, your lower abdomen, never on your breasts. But you could be on a troche, which you stick, it looks like a little chiclet, but it's kind of waxy. You stick it in your mouth between your gum and your cheek and it dissolves. You could be on sublingual drops. You could be on a pellet, which a doctor implants under your skin. So you could take it some forms in capsule. You never take estrogen or testosterone orally. So never, no. Only progesterone you could take orally. Why would anyone unfolding into being? Why would anyone need synthetic hormones unless there is a modern epidemic of root dysfunction in the natural processes? So synthetic hormones are better than none for a woman who's in perimenopause and menopause. It's very clear that some hormone replacement therapy, even if it's synthetic, is better than none. Your health will fare far better. But you do way better with the biologically identical. And I used to have that opinion too, never synthetic. And then when I did the Stop the Menopause Madness Summit, which if you saw it, you saw one of our doctors did a great talk about not being afraid of estrogen, and you can catch it at www.stopthemenopausemadness.com. And she talked about this research that says that synthetic is better than nothing. So if you can only get synthetic from your regular doctor, do that. But if you can get bioidentical, way better. So these are great questions. So that it was the number 2 question out of, like I said, we're up to almost 120 responses on the One Thing questionnaire. If you didn't get to put your question up there, please go and do that at Midlife Metabolism Institute /One Thing, ONETHING. I look forward to hearing what you are concerned about with hormones. And that was your one hormone. So your one question. Your one question that was number 2 most common of all those questions was, is it useful? Is it safe? So yes, it is useful. Yes, it is safe. And actually it's a mainstay of protocols for treating all kinds of chronic diseases that affect women at midlife and beyond. Alzheimer's disease, bioidentical hormones are part of that. Dr. Dale Bredesen has the RECODE protocol. He wrote the End of Alzheimer's book, which I believe was a New York Times bestseller. And one of the key factors in that is that you need to replace healthy, naturally occurring hormone levels: estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Yes, we women have all 3, and we need all 3 to be optimally healthy. Our bones in particular need the testosterone, and our muscles and our brain function, right? So testosterone is not only the big strong hormone, so it keeps your muscles strong and healthy and your bones, but also your brain. It is the initiative hormone. It's the hormone of dopamine, which is your get up and go drive hormone. So we women need that too, to be optimally healthy. So is it useful? Yes. And it's kind of like, when I see a woman who is going through menopause, or say she went through menopause a couple of years ago, and she's like, I don't know what happened to me. I just don't care about anything. I've gained 30 pounds. I have no sex drive. I just don't feel like myself. And you get her on some bioidentical hormones. You check her levels first, of course. And that was your next question, which we're going to answer tomorrow. My doctor says they won't check my hormone levels. But anyway, if you do that, she says, oh my God, it's like someone turned the lights on. And I feel like myself again. So it's pretty amazing. Jeanette says, this is my question. My doctor said she wants me to get off BHRT. Every time I try, symptoms come back. So I would ask your doctor, why does she want you to come off of BHRT? That would be my question. Why would you take somebody off something that's making them thrive? I'm not going to stop taking my bioidenticals. I don't want to get Alzheimer's. I don't want osteoporosis. I don't want to lose my muscle mass and gain weight. I don't want to be depressed and irritable. You have sex hormone receptors in every tissue in your body, mostly in your central nervous system. So what does that tell you? They're not just about sex. They are about neurologic function. You have them in your skin, in your eyes, in your gastrointestinal tract, your muscles and bones we already talked about. There isn't any tissue in the body that doesn't have receptors for these hormones, which means that they're not only about sex, they're also about promoting your health overall. They are anti-inflammatory steroid hormones. Your cells need them. So I don't know about you, but when you go into menopause, you're in a state of hormonal deprivation. I don't want to live 30 years of my life in hormonal deprivation and have a shortened lifespan. So that's what I would ask, is why do they want you to come off of it? So Lisa says, the apple and oranges explanation is great, and I will remember that. Yes, I do bioidentical and I feel amazing. Yes, I can keep up with my grandson like I was in my 30s and I'm 55. Yes, Lisa, that's what I'm talking about. It's what I'm talking about. And Jeanette says, yes, it works for me. So one would think we also have to address the amount of endocrine disruptors in relation to hormone issues, also just overall environmental toxicity. Yes, but you know what? I saw almost no questions on my one thing hormone question survey about endocrine disruptors and environmental toxicity. But in my programs, I definitely teach women about that. So that is an issue. But no amount of endocrine disruptor detox is going to fix the hormonal deprivation onslaught that we get to when we're in menopause. So really, I see a lot of women say, well, I'm just going to take some herbs, some dong quai, black cohosh, soy products, right? You'll never replace your hormones at that level. You'll never get all the benefits from it. So that is a question that I saw in that list very frequently was, is it safe? Is it useful? And another one I saw is, do I have to have it? Well, you don't have to. And some women say, well, how long do I have to take it? Well, as long as you want the benefits from it, then that's how long you need to take it. So that was the question. And if you are interested in the Hormone Balance Mastermind, we are going to launch it later this March because over 100 people said, yes, we want it now. Hey, Deb, how are you? And so you can get on the wait list. The wait list is now open. When I get off the lives, you're so welcome, ladies. And I will put the link in the comments section. And it is, I think it's at Midlife Metabolism Institute /early-bird-waiting-list. Yes, that's where it is. So you can get on the wait list, and you want to do that because when we do open it, probably sometime next week, we will sell out because we only have space for 20 women, and we did sell out the first time, and that was just through an email. So if you will be notified 24 hours before everyone else if you are on the early bird wait list. So you'll want to be on the early bird wait list if this sounds like something that is good for you. And yes, Jeanette, you are so welcome. And Lisa says, do you see thyroid pause on hormone replacement? No, nope. Your thyroid should just keep ticking along. Hey, Christine, is it possible to seed cycle? Eat cooling and warming foods to balance your hormones. Try this first before using bioidentical hormones. You can do that. That's more, works better for women who are cycling in their 20s and 30s. Once you hit 35 or 40, your ovaries' ability to make these hormones markedly goes down. And so seed cycling may give some benefit in the perimenopause. You have to do it individually and see, but by the time you hit menopause, seed cycling is not going to do anything for you, really, because your cavern of deprivation of hormones is ginormous, and seeds are just not going to get you there. That's more for women who are having irregularities in their fertile years. Once you start hitting menopause, the problem is you're born with millions of eggs, but by the time you hit 35, those eggs are old and there aren't that many of them. So they don't have good hormone production, and you don't get enough stimulation from seeds to boost your hormones enough. I know it's all the rage and it's all everybody's talking about, but it's just not enough, to give you the levels. This idea that you can eat your way into hormone balance, absolutely, your hormone balance does start with what you eat. And that's something I love to teach women. Your food is actually, if your hormones are unbalanced, it's like a knotted ball of yarn. And you know how you got to find that little piece that's hanging off to unknot the whole thing? Well, that little piece, when it comes to your hormones, is what you're eating. So what you're eating is absolutely the main programmer of your hormone levels. But also your age and your number of eggs in your ovaries and how old they are and how much hormone they produce is also equally as important. And no amount of eating anything is going to counteract your eggs dying, because they are so when you say seed cycling, seeds are plants' eggs, right? And our ovaries have our seeds, which is our eggs. So this idea that we could compensate for what our eggs and seeds aren't producing with plant seeds and eggs is a nice concept. But the truth is that our mammalian ovarian seeds make so much estrogen and progesterone that no plant really on this earth can compare to that. I hope that makes sense. So, all right. Well, these are great questions. I wanted to come in and just answer the question number 2. I will be back tomorrow with question number 3, which you're going to want to hear because so many people had it. And we will answer more of your questions, and I'll be back in later. If I didn't get a chance to answer the questions that you're posting, I will come back in later and answer those. And if you're not able to make it here live at 1 o'clock every day, please feel free to post your question, and I will scroll through and answer it when I can. Thanks so much for joining me. Mwah! Many blessings. Have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day.